Right, so today we got the BB Gold Star all finished up on the bench now. So we're going to talk about that one in a moment. We're also going to talk about a bike here. We've got an AJS that came in for, should have been quite straightforward work, materialised into being something a little bit more involved. We have the matchless engine and gearbox up on the bench. We haven't got the bike here, but we've had it some time, and we're going to tell you how that's now progressed, and we can go into a little bit more detail about that later. But the one bike I need to just to recap on is the Triton. We had a black Triton here, and black and silver, and do you remember it had the upright bars? The customer wasn't really happy with those, and he didn't want the clip-ons. So we had a pair of black bars that actually came off of Ian's bike, this Gold Star here. And he said to me, you can have those. Well, I looked at them and I thought, well, to be honest with you, on that Triton, because the colour scheme, he got the road holder forks all black, and he got lots of bits and pieces that were nicely painted. I decided that we'll put those on there, but not in a conventional way. We'll turn the bars over. It's a little bit like ace bars years ago. People used to put ace bars on bikes. Ace bars are where you don't have to have, like, you notice here, we got, you know, the clip-ons which come off the stanchions on the fork leg. So an ace bar, it comes from where you got the top tube bracket, like here on this one, and they come over and come down. And you'll see when we cut into the pictures, you'll see it actually look really nice. So we fitted these bars, changed these controls over, rerouted these cables. We took the primary chain case off because there was an issue with the clutch. It had slipped a few times, and we set it up properly on the springs. Also set up the carburation properly, and just went through the bike, done an oil change, checked his gearbox level. And you know, we mentioned about his gear change not being clean. We explained to him you need to make a positive change. We showed it here on the bench going through the gears, and when the bike was delivered back, he took it out on a dry day and he said it was fantastic. The right position, and the whole bike looks better now with those bars. I also did cut the length of the bars down. I took an inch off of each side. So it turned it into quite a nice bike, and I think you'll see that on the photos. What I'm going to talk about now though is this one. Now this one of Ian's was a long job. It came in some time ago, and there's footage of us doing a compression test. It had no compression. It had lots of oil leaks everywhere over the engine. And Ian said, do what's necessary. So we took the engine out, we stripped it down, we found that it was leaking from the head gasket a lot. The piston was badly scored, and the crankshaft, we probably showed that before, but we'll show it again, is cracked. So stripping that down first, and we looked at the gearbox, and that was well worn out as well. And had a small tank on it as well, which was a little bit untidy. So we've managed to sort everything out for him. We'll go first of all through the engine, because we stripped it on the bench and we needed a crank for it. Now the BB engine is different, obviously, in appearance. It's a different stroke to a DBD. I mentioned to Phil Pearson that I was stuck for a crankshaft. Now Phil had basically retired, but he said he would help me out. He said, if you can get a con rod, I will make you a crankshaft. Now we tried various companies, and we couldn't get anyone to supply us with a con rod, because between centres they're 7 and 7/16. It's a different stroke to a DBD. Had it been a DBD, yeah, we could have got a rod for it, and Phil would have made a crank, would have been straightforward. So I said to Phil, I'm not having any luck with getting a con rod. We could have got 4 made potentially in America. We only want 1, and that was going to be, I think, over £1,600 just for one con rod. You got 3 others made besides that one. So Phil said, well, leave it with me, and he done some drawings to what he wanted the rod to be to fit his crankshaft. And he actually done the drawings, found a company, and they made the con rod to his specification. We're very lucky because Phil really had retired, but he was prepared to help me. He's helped me a few times on jobs. He's trusted me with doing what I do here, putting them back together. So we managed to get a crank done. We had it rebored with a Wiseco piston. Phil's, what he's done, he's built a crankshaft. He's put the conrod together. He's bored it. He'd done some repair work to the barrel. He had the valves out and redone a little bit of work on the top end. So it came back to me. I had the crankshaft in the box, I had the barrel and the head, and I built it back up. And I'm pleased with it. And Phil's pleased as well, it's all been done. The gearbox was a bit of a mess. We had to replace all the bushes and all the gears. But the lay shaft, I think we showed before, was very badly worn. Where the drive comes to the speedo, you could lift it up and down. We managed to get through Kidderminster, a reconditioned lay shaft with new bushes undersize. That was all put in there. So that was lucky. I had some gears. I think I mentioned about the high gear was worn badly. So we put everything new in there. And also here, where the clutch activates here, it wears into this casing. I bored this out and put a bush in here as well. So everything has been done. The one thing I was waiting for a few weeks was the intermediate gear bush. Managed to get one of those, and I put that into the gear. Had to ream it out. And we've also fitted a brand new oil pump in here as well. So it's, like I said, it's rebored, new piston, new crankshaft conrod, new oil pump. Been through everything on here. The mag and the dynamo is all in good order. We've also put a conversion on here now. We've put a small concentric carburettor, which is the same specification as we've done with the scrambler we had in there recently. We've put a bell mouth on here with a gauze. But a striking feature of this bike now is the petrol tank. And I think everyone would agree, it sets the bike off nicely. We haven't done a full restoration on here. So we've done mechanics really, basically. But this tank is what I managed to get from Michael Johnson at Surrey Cycles. They're made in India, but to his spec. So you buy this tank with all the furniture, I say furniture, it's with the badges, with the cap, with the breather, with the taps. It's £500. And I reckon that's pretty good value, because I have paid to get a Gold Star tank repainted and lined £400 just to get it painted. This is a brand new tank. The only thing you don't get is a brace bracket on the front, and underneath here it just goes between the two sides of the tank, so you just make those up. But that's nice quality. So the other things what we've done on here to improve it was obviously put new cables on for Ian. He's got some spare cables. We changed the bars from the black bars which we fitted to the Triton. We've got some nice, they're stainless steel, but they're A10 bars, standard bars, nice setup. We've, going around the bike, we've just made things fit properly. We put some new shocks on here because the original shocks were open spring, so that makes it look more period. Around this side we've put a nice chrome chain guard on now as well. But in here we have a brand new clutch. It was a BSA clutch. We've now got a Triumph clutch. So we've upgraded everything really. Primary chain's all new, main chain's new. Everything that you would expect to be done has been done to it. Looking at the front of the bike, this one's slightly unusual because the pilot light, we've got the light displayed underneath here. Now in the day, the mudguard would have had a number plate on the front and that light would show down. If I just turn it on, it doesn't show up very bright, it's just a pilot light in there, but it's quite a nice feature. So yeah, I managed to sort that out, made a new holder up for it. But we just tidied the bike up. He's got on the top here, you'll notice that he's got a very long advance and retard lever, which works well with your hand, because when your hand's on there, it can go between your thumb and your finger easily. So we kept his levers and we kept his switch. The switch he's got on here is fine. The position here for the horn isn't very good. It's even a job to do like that. So I've actually putting another one on here. Well, it's his switch was red, I've just done it black. It does need a bit more paint on there. So you can actually use this for ease really when you've got a glove on. But I think you'd agree the bike actually now looks presentable. I know people are going to say it hasn't got the correct rear light assembly for a Gold Star. It's what you would expect to have on an RGS. But do you know what? It doesn't matter. I think he's going to change his number plate. But I think, you know, all in all, we built this to be ridden. And I've been told it's going to be taken to the Isle of Man next year. And it's a lovely bike to ride. It's comfortable, good ride position. It should be quite a high gear bike. First gear is quite high. I've not had a chance to ride it properly yet because it's so wet at the moment. But we've been careful about running in on this. Been running this very steady. Did put a little bit of R40 in the petrol tank. Just a little bit there to mix with the petrol. More for upper cylinder lubricant. The most important thing when you recommission the engine is to make sure you've got plenty of oil. And Phil has told me before, and I've mentioned it probably to most people, that you want probably best part of half a pint of oil in the crankcase. So when you purge an engine, as everyone knows, you try and get a circulation of oil to return, but that oil in the crankcase, it will give the pump something to draw back on. So it's most important that lubrication, when it first starts up, you know, everything that moves, give it a good coverage of oil, engine oil. But yeah, I'm pleased with it, and I think Ian will be pleased when he comes down. He's obviously going to see this and see his bike again. But we like to take a bike that was in this bit of a sorry state and put it back to how it should be. And they are reliable if they're put together properly. We started this up outside, one kick, you know, and if you can do it properly, it should last, you know, and just needs looking after. But I think it's quite a good example of an alternative to a BB34. This in a, you know, in a touring trim is a nice looking bike. Right, just going to show you very quickly. So I said to you before, all the parts that I change will go back to the customer. When it came in, you'll see that it had this Mikuni carburetor on, which, lovely carb, but it's not right for a Gold Star. So that's something that I wouldn't recommend fitting if you want it to look authentic. In here, he gave me the option of putting it's a monoblock 389. There's so much wear in the body and the slide. And you know, the amount of money we spent on this engine, to fit a worn out carburetor would be a waste of time. So that's why we put the conversion on the small carb, which looks nice. So that's the 389. These are quite nice, have extended float bowl, but you know, to be honest with you, better as he is now. You'll see here on the bench we got various in here. This is the amount of bushes out the gearbox have replaced, and bits and pieces that are worn drive chains. We changed his choke lever because we wanted the ball end. He had a new lever, so it goes back. This is a clutch we replaced. This is the original 6-spring BSA clutch, and we've shown many times now that these tend to be okay. You set them up, you pull the clutch in when the bike is on the stand, and you pull the clutch in, you free the kickstarter off, and it's not too bad. But when you start the engine, you pull the clutch in, they always drag, which means it's hard to get it into gear. It will crunch into gear. The 4-spring Triumph clutch is a far better clutch, so we always do that conversion on these sort of bikes normally. This is a piston. We showed this before, and what we've put in here is a Wiseco. This is what Phil manages to get hold of. They come from America, but this piston was quite badly marked, and like I say, we wanted to put something that Phil knows are good, and it's been rebored to this piston that was in this box. We also replaced this. This is the oil pump. Most important part really, and what I found with this pump when I come to work on it, to strip it down, it looked all right to start with, but there's wear in the body. I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera.
Just do it slow, Dave.
You would lose oil pressure there. So always make sure, most important things of anything really is crankshaft, conrod, all moving parts, piston, but lubrication. Lubrication is good oil pump, maintain good pressure, good circulation. So new pump. So I can't really sort of say enough about, you know, make sure you do cover yourself when you do these jobs and take it apart properly and make sure everything's clean before you reassemble. And if it's, you know, a job like this, present these parts at the end back to the customer, because this hasn't been a cheap job by any means, you know, and he can see exactly what he's paid for. I think it's always the best policy. Behind, just show you, we will talk about this very quickly, our project bike. Now, I do intend to work on this now. I'm not going to have so many jobs in the workshop on the go at any one time now. So what I'm going to be saying here is going back on what I said originally. We were going to send this off to get it painted, but we're not going to do that now because we're going to show you really how things are in real life. We tend to change our mind on a build. We start off in one direction, but it's always better to actually see whether it all goes together. If you get this painted or powder coated, which I'm not a favourite one of powder coating, because if something's not right, you can't go and weld on this steel work because it's plastic coated, and if you start rubbing it back and weld, you'll bubble the plastic up and it's a right pain. So we're going to get this painted. But what we're doing here, we're just putting the engine plates back in place. We've got to make up, well, you could buy this, but we want to make sure that the footrests fit because we didn't have the standard pegs. So what we have here, we've got the spline lugs that come off the back of the frame. I can't slide it on there, but we want to make sure everything comes in the right position. And we've managed to get hold of some footrests now. And how they work, obviously, when the shaft goes right through, that's pegged in place. When that's into the spline itself, let's have a look, try and get it in.
Can you come around, Dave?
It's got to be drifted on.
Oh, let's just mock it up.
It's got to be drifted on, but that would sit in there like that, that's it. And that, it just extends it out. There'd be a nut. Well, your bar itself comes right up through, then you have a nut on the other side on the threaded part. That needs to go on further than that. So we're going to make sure that the actual pegs look in the right position and they're straight. We'll heat those up and get them straight before we do any of this painting. Something we were playing around with is because we got a QD wheel very quickly. We was messing around with where we're going to have the brake pivot point. Now this is originally there had been a loop here each side, and this is for the sidecar lug. I thought I could do it this way and extend the brake lever. We do it standard because they're standard, everyone knows. This is an RGS one. This is the swing arm spindle. One off a Golden Flash, we'll show you very quickly, has a brake lever on this side. And I'll just show you over here because we got it here. This is Tom's bike, and might as well say at the moment, we've done everything on this. We've got the lights working, got the loom in. We're just waiting for the engine from SRM. We'll put that back in place. But this is what we're going to do on our project bike. We're going to run our brake lever through the swing arm like this. Instead of having the linkage on the other side, we have a brake rod here to the QD wheel. So that's what we're going to do. Make it nice and straightforward. We want standard pegs because if you was to stand up riding the bike, you want to be central. You don't want rear sets. We want a standard foot position. Make it nice and comfortable with high bars. So that's the way we're going on our bike. So hopefully we can get that one finished soon. Right, before I forget, I showed you before, the reason why we have trouble and we've had to replace crankshafts, and this is a classic example of this one, it's where they crack, but also this one, it's had a bit of a hard life. You can see all the way around it, there's places where it's been pinched up, it's been gripped in the vise, it's been drifted with a hammer to get the webs running true. But if you listen to this, it's very, very notchy. I can't show you that, but you can hear it. It's really rough and there's wear in it. Now, what we do here, I showed you before for checking for cracking. Now, Phil explained to me about this a long time ago. Get your WD-40 and squirt it out into the oil way in the crankshaft. And then you put an airline behind it and you'll see where it'll bubble out. Now, if you look here, you'll see bubbles appearing. That's where it's cracked.
Do it again, Dave, while I'm close.
Let's just put a bit more in there now. Because this is the oil way lubrication from the casing where the pump is. Oil will come through the centre of the crank and it'll go up to the big end. Now if I put that on there now, the airline, and you'll see all those bubbles coming out. That's where it's cracked. We can see we've got bubbles here and round here. What can happen, and this is why people go for a pressed up crank rather than riveted up together, is this crack will go further around and it could go to a stage where it just shears off this stub shaft here and you're going to do so much damage to the bottom of the engine. Because in the day, I mean, these bikes were raced, so these engines would have been pulled down on a regular basis and the cranks were being checked all the time. But this is quite bad, so this is why this has been replaced. In fact, we've now done three of these cranks now. We've replaced them Gold Stars. So yeah, it's quite a common thing. So I do worry sometimes with a lot of the Gold Stars that are out there, what the condition of the engines are like inside. And you imagine running that thing at 5,000 RPM and that lets go. It's not going to be pretty. What I'm going to show you here, now this is a standard rod for a BB. This is what is downstairs, what you don't see in the actual flywheels. So this is a standard one. So you can see the bearing, the big end bearing, and this, you see the nuts here? So that is a complete standard one. Ian managed to get this for his bike, for his engine, but because Phil builds his own crank, we wanted a modern con rod in there and a more substantial bearing. So that is a standard one. So yeah, they're quite hard to get hold of, so that now we'll find a new home for that one. So from this one, we're talking about the match list, the G11, which belongs to Rob Bayman. It was his dad's bike. Recap was, it was taken apart back in 1960, I think it was, 59-60, something like that. And it's been in parts ever since, in bits ever since. Dad passed away and Rob now wants to get his bike, his dad's bike, back on the road. We're doing the engine and gearbox here. I was waiting for various bits to be sorted out. We managed to get another crankshaft because the crank was bent. I think we might have shown that in the video. And we managed to get a company. I'm just going to check on my memory. We managed to get T&L Engineering, and that was Barry Talbot to help me out on this one. They're up in Northampton, so they do a lot of the work for AMC, and they've managed to grind the crank for us. They got some new pistons for us, and the bores on here are okay, so we know we've got a good crank, and the shells have been done, and a set of good rods, so we can build this thing up now. But we've got to do various things on the way. We've got the two heads here, because they're single heads. The plugs have been in here a long time, so we need to put these heads in the oven, heat these up and work on these. These are, you don't see these now, KRGs. So we're going to try and get these plugs out without damaging the plugs or the threads in the head itself. So we need to do the valves on these heads. We need to clean these barrels up and paint these barrels. We hone those barrels. We've got a pair of oil pumps. Now these are the ones that are on the bike, on the engine, but there's quite a lot of wear. I'll have to get a pair of pliers to show you because my fingers are getting in the way. And if you look at here, there's a lot of sideways movement. Well, that's no good.
Show us.
Show you down there.
Yep.
This is similar to what we showed you on Ian's pump on the Gold Star. So we're going to have to, you can't get these new now, but I managed to pick up a pair of pumps and they've been soaking, but there was no wear in these, and they're doing a really good clean up, and we can put this back there. It looks a bit scabby now, but next time you see this, well, I'll show you it all cleaned up and show you how good they are. But the gears are good and the cases are good, so that'll be good. That's the most important part, as I said before, oil circulation. Don't get cavitation in the pump. You want a good flow of oil in a return. So that's that job. The gearbox itself, we're not going to worry too much at the moment because I put some tape on it because people say you've got a pair of grips straight on that spline. There's no gear lever, so I put some tape around and put the grips on. I'm getting all my gears okay. They're selecting. That's into first. That's back into neutral. That's into second. That's into third. And that's into fourth. So all the selection's okay, and there's no wear on the main shaft. So I think for the moment we'll leave this box until we've got the engine built up, and then we can take this apart, because there's no point in having more parts in pieces at the moment. We've got an AJS here, which AJS and Matchless AMC bikes, just badge name is different really, a bit like G9 we had here. This one came in, as mentioned a few minutes ago, for a problem where it wouldn't start. What we got here, we got a magneto that's been converted to a 4-spark setup. So it's using an electronic device now instead of the points, which is behind this cover, just to pick up, same as a Boyer basically. And again, you have a power switch, and we had no power down to this module in here. So what had happened was no spark wouldn't start. You had issues with it before as well. So it'd been sitting around for a long time, not being used. And everyone knows with AMC engines, they do wet some, a lot of engines do. So all the engine from the oil tank drained down into the crankcase, filled the crankcase up, got to the crankshaft line, and come into the primary chain case. Got into the plates and the clutch, and that wouldn't free off. So after I sorted out the reason why we had no spark, and got the electrics working properly, we found the clutch didn't work. So we took this cover off here, because it's got an outer cover on the primary chain case cover, took the clutch apart, drained the oil out of it, replenished the oil tank, and happy days, that was fine. Started the bike up and noticed that we had no charge on the ammeter. So we've shown this before. We do a test on the dynamo, we take the cover off, we cross the F and the D, link them together, and we have a meter, and we have that be on the power side. On the negative side, it just serves against the body. We start it up, and we just see what voltage we can get unregulated. You should get something like 14 to 15 volts. We've got nothing at all. So I took it off, took it apart, and found that the armature, I think there's a picture of that, one of the windings, you can see a broken copper wire to the armature. So Roger, I mentioned Roger before, he specialises in these. He doesn't really want to be known now because he's in his 80s, and he said, I can do it for you, and I'll do a test and give you the values. So we got it reconditioned and fitted it back on, still didn't get a charge. My fault, should have checked it. I'm just going to get you a torch, and this is an easy mistake to make. Okay, so this dynamo here, I looked at it and I can see it doesn't look right. You can see there's a cable going in here with a grommet, which is not the correct place it should be going in. There's a D-shaped grommet here, and the cable should go in through that grommet, but it's in the wrong position. If you look closely on the other side, you will also see that there's an arrow pointing forwards that is etched into the casing of the dynamo. That is the direction of rotation. When you take the cover off, it's running the wrong way. Someone's put this dynamo on here from a different bike, from a different engine. They've copied it on here, and of course it won't work. The setup with these bikes is positive earth. This was running as negative earth and running the wrong direction. I mentioned this to Roger. Roger said, not a problem, we can swap it over. So we've swapped it over from negative to positive earth. We also changed the direction of rotation in charge. So now that would charge, which is in fact the wrong direction shown on here. So we left a felt tip pen mark to show the direction of rotation as it is now. So that now is working properly. We'll do a quick fire up in this in a moment. But yeah, it didn't come in for that, but the customer paid a lot of money for this bike, and they had this a year or so, and would go out and do maybe 30 minutes, come back, battery would be flat, because the force spark was drawing the energy from the battery and no charge. So one of those jobs that can get a little bit involved, and it's, you know, this is where I said before, people get away with this. That was fitted and the bike was sold and it was never charging, and we sorted it out for him now. But yeah, that's where the job can be quite a headache at times. So, but I'll show you now how easy that is to start now. The thing about a force spark setup, it is quite a cheap way to take a mag that's not working properly to make it work. Okay, it won't be like it was originally because you've got dummy leads now, you've got a coil pack, but it does mean you can do a quick fix yourself. You can see now we've got a charge now. If you look at the ammeter, we'll put the lights on. You can see the lights are coming up bright as well. So that wasn't working before. But it has got a battery that's too small really for it. As I said to customer, you ought to really get the right size battery. Because in this box, that should be the size of battery. There's a little tiny battery inside there. But it's done. It's where a customer can get quite disillusioned by a bike, and it's not really the bike, it's where it's been badly set up and things aren't working properly. So when they're working properly, they're okay, and you know, now he can actually enjoy it. But with these, if they're going to stand for a length of time, I told him you need to drain the oil off the bottom of the engine and put it back into the oil tank. But yeah, I think after having it, like, I think best part of 2 years, he's actually going to get around to be able to ride it next year. So that's good. That one will be going hopefully this week. So that's where we are in the workshop at the moment. And yeah, it'd be nice to actually see our bike come along a little bit now, and got the Gold Star done, and we get Thomas's bike out of the way. Then the customers that have been waiting for us to do the work, we can actually say, right, we can start your work now. But I'm not going to get inundated with too many jobs in one go. I'm going to try and concentrate on one at a time and doing our job. So thank you for watching, and I'm glad you enjoyed watching the Gold Star come back to life.